Thorfinn was having a terrifying nightmare. In his dream, his younger self had entered a house with the intention of killing young Einar and his family. Despite his attempts to stop himself, the ground opened up beneath him and he fell into darkness. Desperately, he tried to climb back up, but he was pulled down by the hands of the dead. Thorfinn woke up in a cold sweat, screaming in terror. Einar was alarmed by Thorfinn's screaming and asked him what was wrong. Thorfinn recounted his nightmare, still shaken by the experience. As he tried to piece together what had happened, he suddenly remembered falling off a cliff. Einar was surprised that Thorfinn was able to remember his dream this time, and noted that he had been talking in his sleep, mentioning the names Father and Askeladd. He asked Thorfinn who Askeladd was, wondering if it was someone named. As Thorfinn collected some water from the well to wash himself, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had forgotten something important from his dreams. He knew they had been horrifying, but for some reason, he couldn't remember the details. Frustrated, he wondered why he couldn't remember his dreams. After getting dressed, Thorfinn and Einar headed out to work. As they began their tasks, the retainers arrived to collect the wood they had cut. The retainers noticed that the wheat had grown substantially and noted it was because of Einar. One of the retainers, however, expressed annoyance that Kettle allowed a slave to farm the land. He argued that slaves shouldn't be treated the same as retainers and given the same opportunities. As Thorfinn and Einar work on fixing the roof, Thorfinn confesses to Einar that Askeladd was the man who killed his father. Thorfinn had followed Askeladd into battle, driven by a burning desire for revenge. He had fought relentlessly for 11 years, consumed by hatred and the need to kill Askeladd. But despite all his efforts, he had never been able to exact his revenge as Askeladd was killed in front of him by someone else. Einar questions whether Thorfinn has truly let go of his vendetta, given that he still dreams about Askeladd. Thorfinn admits that Einar may be right but feels like he is forgetting something crucial. Einar advises Thorfinn that there is no point in continuing to hate a dead man and that his quest for revenge should be over. However, Thorfinn explains that his hatred had been the driving force behind his existence for so long that without it, he feels empty. He had survived on his hate, and he knows nothing else but the battlefield. Thorfinn reflects on Askeladd's last words to him about becoming a true warrior, and he realizes that he no longer harbors hatred towards him. This realization unsettles Thorfinn because without his hate, he feels empty. As they talk, Sverkel interrupts them, reminding them that they have other jobs to do for the day. Sverkel leads Thorfinn and Einar to the beach to teach them how to fish using a net. Despite their efforts, they are unable to catch anything. Sverkel offers Thorfinn advice, as he had overheard him when he was talking to Einar. He tells him that he can begin to learn new things slowly, one by one, and encourages Thorfinn that if he feels empty, he can use that emptiness as an opportunity to fill himself up with new experiences. Sverkel explains that if Thorfinn wants to be reborn, it is better to be empty so that he can start anew. Thorfinn is left contemplating these words and wonders if it's possible for him to be reborn. As Thorfinn and Einar make their way to work the following day, Thorfinn poses a deep question to Einar about the possibility of change and the efforts required to make it happen. Einar takes a moment to reflect on Thorfinn's own transformation, recalling that he was once a fierce warrior, but now he looks like a completely different person. Einar expresses gratitude that he didn't cross paths with Thorfinn during his warrior days, as it is likely, Thorfinn would have killed him. However, Einar reassures Thorfinn that change is possible, and that he is already on the path to becoming a better person. Just then, Einar suddenly stops, causing Thorfinn to bump into him. They both turn to see the devastating sight of their wheat field completely destroyed. Thorfinn immediately wonders if people were responsible for the destruction. Einar explains that wheat is a resilient crop that can withstand strong winds, but the destruction is no accident. The perpetrators knew that wheat would recover from the wind, which is why they dug up the roots, a deliberate act of destruction. Einar strides purposefully towards the retainers, convinced that they are responsible for the destruction of their wheat field. Thorfinn attempts to intervene, suggesting they speak with Pater before taking any drastic action. Einar's frustration and anger boil over, remarking that Thorfinn appears unnaturally calm given the circumstances. He then grabs Thorfinn's shirt, and angrily explains that their livelihood depends on the success of their crops, and now they have been left with nothing. Not only will they have no harvest, but they will also need to borrow seeds to replant. Einar is particularly incensed because the retainers are also farmers and should understand the hardship and joy it takes to grow wheat. Thorfinn interjects, admitting that he too was once someone who took and destroyed without regard for the consequences. Unlike Einar, he feels he has no right to be outraged at the retainers. Thorfinn then declares that if Einar is determined to take revenge on the retainers, then he also deserves to die at his hand. After Thorfinn's impassioned plea, Einar begins to calm down and the two decide to call Peter for guidance. Peter advises them to leave the field untouched until he can investigate and potentially find any evidence left behind by the perpetrators. He inquires if they have any idea who may have done this. Einar is convinced it was the retainers, and Peter promises to report their suspicion to Ketil. Peter shares a personal anecdote of his own experience with discrimination and bullying, admitting that he has also faced hardship and mistreatment. He reminds Thorfinn and Einar that discrimination exists everywhere, but not everyone subscribes to it. There are good people in the world, and they should not lose hope in the face of adversity. Einar confides in Thorfinn about Arnheid, telling him that she doesn't have the same deal as them, explaining that Ketil had taken a liking to her and she had lost hope of ever being free. They discuss the bleak reality of their lives, where being liked meant being bound and being disliked led to mistreatment. As they spot the approaching retainers, Thorfinn suggests taking a different path, but Einar charges ahead. One of the men asks why they seem upset, and Einar confronts him about the attack on their farm. The man denies it, causing Einar to lose his temper. However, Thorfinn restrains him before the situation escalates further. The man continues to feign ignorance but mockingly reveals that their wheat was grown by slaves and was unfit for consumption. Einar, unable to control his anger, shoves Thorfinn aside and attempts to hit the man. However, Thorfinn intervenes and lands a devastating punch that breaks the man's jaw. Realizing the gravity of his actions, Thorfinn is momentarily stunned. Einar compliments his punch, and the other retainers swarm in to attack them. Thorfinn tries to hold Einar back, but he gets struck from behind with a rake. The retainers and Einar then begin to fight. Thorfinn watches, and as he tries to get up, one of the retainers kick him in the jaw. As he slowly falls unconscious, he catches sight of his father, who appears to be speaking but is inaudible. And with that, we conclude this episode.